Hey guys, I muted myself. Shit. I didn't think I was one of those dumbasses who starts a podcast all muted and shit, you know? People would be like, oh, what a moron. Hey guys, what's going on? Let's see. Hey, Sapphire Elf. I'm glad you finally made it out. What up? Glenn Dannison up in the house. Gemini Moon. There's Be Kind. My sister from another mister. Who else is in the chat? Danny Staten, my fellow wrestling fan. So what's up? Do you guys hear and see me okay? Okay, what's up? So, hey guys, this is a topic that I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's one of the topics I had in mind when I first started doing this show. Okay, how would I introduce this topic? Okay, first and foremost, if you are in any way a proponent of the Christian faith, or if you are involved in some sort of Christianity, heed my warning. You might not want to listen to this one tonight because some of the things I'm going to say are kind of fucked up. All right, so be warned. I'm about to get all sacrilegious up at this bitch. All right. So, hey everybody. Okay. Who's Satan? Danny Staten? Who? Oh, you're talking about Jamie Oliver? Yeah, I agree. Fuck that guy. Jamie Oliver. Guy can't even cook fried rice. Okay. So I want to start this topic off by, if someone were to come up to me and say, hey, Donnie Cho, rank your top 5 greatest men to have ever walked the face of the earth in order from number 1 to number 5. Okay. So, hey, wink at me. What's going on? Okay. So I would say number 1, the top number 1 would be Jesus. He's the number 1 dude. Number 2 would be Buddha. Specifically Siddhartha Gautama, the original Buddha. There was more than one. Number 3 would be the topic of my show tonight, Keanu Reeves. Number 4 would be John Cena. And number 5 would be Bruce Lee. And then 6 through 13 would be the individual members of BTS. That's how I would rank it. Hey, Flock. Okay. Let's see what else. Hey, Sapphire. Hey, be nice to Christians. I'm not saying I intend on dissing them. I'm just saying there might be some things that come out of my mouth that might shock them. And if that's the case, well, I just have to say that it is entirely unintentional. I do not mean to make anyone here butthurt, okay? I got Christian friends. I mean, my main homie, my main partner in crime, Jason McLean, you know, he's like the ultimate Bible nerd. He's the Bible nerd we all know and love. So yeah, that would be my top 5 greatest men to have ever walked the earth. Number 1, Jesus. Number 2, Buddha. Number 3, Keanu Reeves. Number 4, John Cena. And number 5, Bruce Lee. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 would be the individual members of BTS. There's 7 members. And then 13, maybe, I don't know, Alexander the Great. 14, maybe George Washington or Abraham Lincoln. Socrates. Anyway, yeah, those are my, and maybe Michael Jordan would be in that list, like the top 20. So yeah, that's my list of, well, I mean, Bruce Lee is not low. I mean, he's 5th, but the 5th is high because my list is very long of the greatest men. I mean, he's in the top 10. That's an honor. I'm just saying he loses out to John Cena, but then they both lose out to Keanu Reeves. And then the only one above Keanu Reeves is going to be Jesus and Buddha, but they're like exalted beings and shit. So, you know, that's understandable. So yeah, that's my That's my ranking of the greatest men who've ever lived. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock would probably be top 50. Yeah, so that's how it goes for me. That's at least my own personal biased opinion, one would say. So yeah. Oh, it's Poncho. Anyway, okay. So to introduce, oh hey, it's Scott. Scott's Life. Okay. So to introduce this topic, first and foremost, I want to bring up a book. This book is pretty fucked up, and I love it for it. A few months back, when I was on Texas show with Rob and Jason, and I think that was the last show Jason and I did as regulars on Texas channel before Tex kicked us out. Just kidding, guys. We didn't get kicked out. YouTube forced us apart. So on the last show, we were talking about how much woo is too much woo. And I brought up a book. Do I still have it here? Fuck it. I put it away somewhere. Yeah. So I brought up a book that I thought was like the maximum wooiest book. And I actually have a few of those books that are just so woo, it's beyond like ridiculous, right? Because if you guys have seen that episode, we talked about different levels of woo, right? There's like low levels of woo, medium levels of woo, and then maximum woo. Something like Bigfoot and Dogman, I would say would be like medium to above average levels of woo. On a 10-point scale, Bigfoot, Dogman probably fall between like a 5 and a 7, maybe an 8. But once you get to like 9 and 10, then you're talking about like the channeled shit. Like people channeling aliens and shit and CE5s and getting into like weird spiritual alien confederations, the crazy shit. That's the shit I'm about. That's like the maximum woo. I love maximum woo. So does that mean I believe in maximum woo? No, I don't believe it. I don't disbelieve it. Whether or not I believe something is completely irrelevant. I just like the ridiculousness of it all. That's it. I don't care about whether or not it's true. I revel in its ridiculousness. The more ridiculous, the better, is what I say. What are y'all talking about? Hey, are you guys having your own side conversations and not paying attention to what I'm talking about? Oh my god, my words are so boring. What can I do? I gotta say more entertaining shit. Anyway, so let me bring up one of the wooiest books I've ever come across in my entire life. And I don't want to bring up too much details about this book because I do eventually very soon plan on doing an entire podcast episode about this book. It's just that, I'm actually currently rereading it and just trying to compile notes so I can get some cool stuff. But one of my, I guess, people that I studied a lot when I first got into the paranormal was Edgar Cayce. I know a lot about Edgar Cayce. I read a lot of his readings. I've studied the man's life, his biography, his philosophies, and some of the things he says about aliens and spirits and ghosts and the future. And that motherfucker talks a lot about Atlantis. He does. Oh, thanks, Flock. Right? I believe you, be kind. She does strike me as a lady who can multitask better than most. But this book is a motherfucking woo fest. Let me show you. Oh, I love this book. This book is wild. So basically, at one point in Edgar Cayce's readings and his life, there was this dude. He was like a theological seminary student who came out of Harvard, apparently, according as the story goes. And he wanted to know the truth about what went down in the Bible, like in the days of Jesus. And he came there with a notebook, tape recorder. They had him lie down, and this homie asked him every question there is about like what actually went down in Jesus's day. And then, oh boy, the stuff that came out of Edgar Casey's mouth, holy shit. This book was like, the whole time I was like, what the fuck? Holy shit. What? This book is crazy. And don't worry, guys. I'm going to get there. We're going to do this episode soon. The wooest of the woo-tacular books. Everything Edgar Casey says about Jesus. And there is some shocking shit, folks. Oh boy, you're in for a ride. Now, the reason why I bring up this book, though, because there was at one point I came across a certain prophecy, a very influential prophecy in my own personal spiritual and supernatural worldview, I guess. I mean, I don't completely believe it. Again, these kinds of things, I don't completely believe or disbelieve. I must state again, my beliefs are irrelevant. I just revel in the ridiculousness. That is all. But I did come across a prophecy. In this book, at one point, the gentleman asks the sleeping prophet Edgar Casey while he's doing his readings. The question was, when Jesus returns, how exactly will he return? Like, what does that even look like? Like, in what manner does he return? Edgar Casey's response, I thought, was very interesting. His answer was that he was going to, he was or is going to, I guess past future would be the most appropriate verb tense in this situation. He's going to come back, according to Edgar Casey, the exact same way he came in last time. That's what he said. He's not going to descend from the sky. He's not going, nothing like that. He is going to be born of a woman here on earth, grow up as a kid, may or may not be even aware of who he actually is, go through training, go through education, grow up, eventually figure out that he's Jesus. It's going to be the same story from last time happening again. According to Edgar Casey. Again, you don't have to buy it. I'm not saying I buy it, but I'm just repeating what he said. And I thought, if that is the case, that's pretty interesting, right? Pretty interesting. Coming all low key like that. And that kind of makes sense. Wasn't there that one passage where one of the disciples was like, hey, Jesus, when you come back, what's that going to be about? And Jesus is like, oh, I'm going to come in like a thief in the knife, baby. When I come in, no one's going to see it coming. And that passage kind of stuck with me. And that passage I kind of thought about when I thought about what Edgar Casey actually, his response to that question, that Jesus was going to come back to earth the exact same way he came last time, right? A woman's going to give birth to him. He's going to grow up as a kid, become an adult, figure out he's Jesus, and bam, Jesus 2.0 has arrived. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Oh, funny you should say, Scott. It's not like this stuff really contradicts what the Bible says. And if anything, it's weird. It actually, rather than doing that, it actually fills in random details in between. For example, imagine the gospel the way it's written, right? Where it's like all like these verses and chapters, and it's all very highbrow. This is basically the gospel, but written as if it was like a dude that was just there. So it's just like a different narrative. The overall message is the same. So he's not like really stepping on the Bible's toes, but he does add a lot of really interesting fucking details. Like he goes more into like, for example, he gives a physical description of what Jesus actually looked like. He goes into, during the Last Supper, for example, one of the guys interviewing him asks him, hey, during the Last Supper, what did they actually eat? And this was a question that I actually asked a lot growing up as a Christian. And he actually says what they actually ate in the Last Supper. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of fucking cool. Actually, he actually breaks down the menu. And I'm like, yo, that's dope. So it's like kind of like all the little random details that the Bible doesn't get into. For example, it goes more into like explaining more like the disciples, their backstories, and It goes into like what they actually look like. So it's just added details. I'm not saying you got to believe it. I'm not advertising this as truth, but it is, even if you don't believe it, consider it like fan fiction, you know? Excuse me while I sip my adult beverage. So yeah, that whole thing was pretty crazy. I'm going to tell you guys a funny little detail about me that might surprise you. I actually well, I guess volunteered would be the best word for it. I volunteered as a Sunday school teacher for about 6 years, all throughout my college life and a little bit after that. hmm Donnie Cho was a Sunday school teacher. At the time, the church was Presbyterian. The reason why I was a Sunday school teacher is because my father's an elder. An elder, for those of you who aren't familiar with like church governance, imagine if the pastor or the minister is like the CEO, and then the elders are more like the board, the board members, or yeah, the board members. Those are like the elders, meaning that the decision to hire and fire um, pastors for a church is really handled by a small committee of board members who essentially vote. It's pretty much like how a corporation works, right? When the board decides on who becomes the CEO, it's pretty much the same thing. So my dad was an elder in this church, so he's kind of a big deal. It was a pretty big church, and he's pretty well known in the Korean Christian world. So I was kind of known as, "Oh, you're his son." So I kind of had to be a Sunday school teacher. I didn't really want to because I'd be out like clubbing and partying and trying to get laid Saturday night, and then I'd be walking in all hungover and be like, "Hey kids, let's open up to Matthew chapter 5 and learn about how Jesus did shit." Yeah, I wasn't like really into it, but it was all right. I did, some of some of my students actually went on to become pastors themselves, so I'm kind of proud of that actually. I was like, "Oh, I helped shape their initial," and I didn't say any crazy shit. I just followed the curriculum. There was the youth pastor. Youth pastor said, "Hey, for these next few months, I want you to teach these kids Romans." And I'm like, "Okay, that's what I'll do." So I did take it seriously, and I did, actually try to teach what they expected me to teach them, which, I could do. It actually helped me grow in my teaching experience, which later led me to my career in as an English instructor for corporate dudes in Korea. So it was a good learning experience. But yeah, Donnie Cho was indeed a Sunday school teacher. Mostly I taught like upper elementary, like fifth and sixth graders, but also like some middle school kids as well. Yeah, it would be like explaining theological concepts or going over different passages. So, and they would have Q&A. And I did know my theology. I wasn't a dumbass when it came to the Bible. So yeah, I mean, I was able to hang. I mean, I'm not like a straight up Bible nerd like Jason is. I mean, that dude like freaking memorized like, well, I mean, he can't like recite passages because his brain doesn't work like that, but there's some motherfuckers in this paranormal community who talk shit like they're like, "Oh, I'm so Christian and look at my Bible knowledge. I drop Bible verses in social media and now everyone's kissing my ass because I'm so holy." Yeah, could kind of see past that. But of all those, but Jason's the real deal. And I mean that like actually earnestly and sincerely. He's not one of those fake ass motherfuckers who just drop like random Bible verses on Facebook, right? Motherfuckers who act all Christiany because they can, spit out or recite a fucking random Bible verse that they've memorized, and now everyone's like, "Oh my God, we should clap for you. He's so holy." And I'm like, is he really holy, or does he just have memorization skills? You know, whatever. Okay, that guy can memorize 2 sentences. Wow. Let me beat off to how holy he is. Anyway, I remember one time I had to sub for one of the teachers that was out. So I had to fill in for like the first graders, second grader class, where it's all like little kid shit. And then one of the assignments was like they would do like arts and crafts, And one of the assignments was, well, draw Jesus, right? So I remember this one little girl, probably like 6 or 7 years old, comes up to me with her little construction paper, whatever, shows me what she had. The drawing was horrible, by the way. For those of you who don't know, little kids are pretty shitty at drawing. It's true. Like my friends would be like showing me their drawings of what their 5-year-old kid did of like a horse. I'm like, that's supposed to be a horse? Really? Really? Okay. It's anatomically incorrect. Sorry. Your 5-year-old son's a dumbass. I'm just kidding, guys. I don't mean to sound like an asshole. Come on, folks. It's a joke. It's sweet. I'm just saying, when I was 5 years old, I was pretty dope at art. Sorry, man. That's just my asshole humor. I like to make people laugh by coming off as a bigger asshole than I really am in real life. But I do remember this one girl. She comes up to me and then she's got this picture of like construction paper. It's a pretty shitty drawing, objectively shitty drawing. And it's a picture of Jesus, I guess, looked more like a stick figure with a beard and long hair. And he was riding like a pony with bat wings. And then there were all these creatures flying around him. And then there was clouds. And I'm like, what is this? What did you draw? She was like, oh, I'm drawing Jesus's return when Jesus comes back. In Revelations, when he comes back, the second coming. I'm like, okay, cool. What is that thing he's riding on? And she's like, oh, it's a Pegasus. And then when she said that, because I'm a professional, I was like, oh, that's a very good drawing. Little Sue, you did a very good job. Okay, here you go. Now here's a sticker. That's what I said. What I was thinking was I wanted to rip that fucking piece of paper in half and throw it in that little girl's face and be like, Pegasus? Pegasus ain't real. Fuck Pegasus. She had a fucking Pegasus in the drawer. I was like, why you got a Pegasus? It's fucking stupid. Goddamn stupid ass Pegasus fucking fangirl. Get the fuck out of here with Pegasus. This is Sunday school, okay? Oh, that fake garbage. Bullshit ass Pegasus. And that same thing goes for unicorns too. And the other thing that really pisses me off is when little girls draw a Pegasus and like it's a unicorn but with wings. And I'm like, nah, little girl, you can't have both. You gotta decide one or the other. Are you gonna draw a Pegasus or a unicorn? You can't do that bullshit chimera shit. That's cheating. Stupid kids. Fuck Pegasus. But anyway, I was just kind of thinking about that because a lot of people, when you ask them, what do you think it'll look like when Jesus returns? Isn't that what a lot of people say, right? They envision like the clouds opening up and then Jesus rides down. He's like floating down and there's like an army of like angels and they all have like flaming swords and shit. And Jesus might have like golden armor and like the trumpets are blowing and everyone's like on their feet. And I'm like, that's not very thief in the knife to me. That's actually sounds like the opposite, where he's just like, hey, everyone pay attention to me. I'm coming in now. Yeah, that's kind of the opposite. So I'm like, it's probably not. If it like when Jesus comes back, it's probably not going to look like that. Some people envision like a bunch of UFOs flying down, and then the doors open, those little stairs come down, a bunch of alien little grays come out, roll out the red carpet, and then Jesus comes out. He's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" Right out on the White House, right? I don't think it's going to end up like that either. A lot of people, other people think that it will look something like that one Wakanda battle scene in Avengers Infinity War, where that rainbow bridge comes down and fucking Thor appears with Rocket and Groot. And it's like, oh shit. It's like a fucking entrance, like the grandest of entrance in the movie. Some people think it's going to be like that. But I am actually, ever since reading this, and again, I'm not saying I buy it, but I am becoming more and more intrigued with the idea that what if Jesus was instead just born somewhere to like regular ass parents, just grew up. Maybe he had a job. Maybe he went to school. Maybe, maybe he's actually, and that's the thing that really got to me. I'm like, if that's the case, then Jesus could already be here and none of us would even know it. We'd all be none the wiser. He could already be here. He could be like a random ass dude eating a burger at McDonald's, right? He could be just a regular schmo walking down the street, maybe with like a flannel shirt and a baseball cap and a backpack. I find the idea of that very compelling. Maybe he gets a job. What kind of job would Jesus get if uh, he were to be born in this modern day or like in this generation and he's just born like, I don't know, in your town or just a regular guy, just goes to school, gets like part-time jobs, maybe gets like a regular job. And maybe when Jesus makes his Jesus 2.0 comes here, he's probably thinking to himself, man, that last time I was here when Jesus 1.0, I had to be like this fucking carpenter and deal with wood. Man, that shit hurt my hands. I don't want to do that shit no more. I want to try something different. What kind of job should Jesus have? All right, because he was a carpenter the last time. And then what if Jesus decided, hey, what if I got into acting instead? And that's when the light bulb went off in my head. And that's when I realized the truth. Jesus might already be here. He might be hiding right in plain sight. In fact, we probably all have already seen his face. And that, my friends, leads to the topic at hand. What if he's been here the whole time? What if we've been watching him? This is his job now. And maybe Jesus wanted to be a Hollywood actor. Hey, why not? I mean, I'm not going to hate on him for wanting to do something other than being a carpenter. Being a carpenter kind of sucks. And also, not very much in demand in this modern era. So he probably had to do a different career choice. So he decided, hey, why don't I go into acting school and do acting? And of course, I can't be called Jesus because no one would take me seriously. So what name should I take instead? Something that sounds cool, but it's also relatable. Keanu Reeves. Bam. Keanu Reeves. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I may have already identified the true identity of the second coming of Christ. And, he's still not doing his Christ thing. He's still, just kind of biding his time, just like Jesus was biding his time being a carpenter. This time, Jesus 2.0 is biding his time being a Hollywood actor. Now, there are a couple things. There are a few things. That first picture I showed you was from The Matrix. Think about this picture again, right? The Matrix is obviously the most obvious allegory for Jesus. It's not even subtle about it. They hit you over the head repeatedly. The trilogy, the Trinity, the sacrifice, the disciples, his battle with Satan, his relationship with God. I mean, this is just like slapping you in the face with a frying pan levels of subtlety of like Christian allegory, right? We've all seen it, right? But then I'm starting to look back on all of Keanu's movies and I realized they're all like that. They're all like that. Just about every major Keanu Reeves movie is him facing off. For example, look at this movie, folks. What's this movie called? The Day the Earth Stood Still. Think about it. Motherfucking Keanu shows up. Everyone loses their mind. Everyone realizes The world's never going to be the same, for Keanu has arrived. And they start questioning themselves. They start questioning their place in this universe because they see that Keanu has arrived. I mean, that's so obvious, folks. I don't know. It's like Hollywood just like screaming in our face, hey, over here, guys. This dude Jesus. Hey, guys, pay attention now. Look at his movie posters, man. Every movie poster's got him up like he's Jesus. I mean, it's just so in your face, and it's like every goddamn movie. I mean, think about of all the actors, of all the movies he's ever done, you guys have to consider this. Out of all the actors, Keanu Reeves has whooped Satan's ass in the most movies. Think about it. Agent Smith, an allegory for Satan. That motherfucker whooped Dracula's ass. I mean, fucking Dracula had to go. That dude tried to cockblock Keanu Reeves, get all up on Winona Ryder like that. And what happens to Dracula at the end? He gets his fucking head cut off. So Dracula's ass had to go. Try to cockblock Keanu Reeves. What the fuck are you thinking, Dracula? With Winona Ryder. That motherfucker got his head cut off, and for good reason. And Dracula is pretty damn close to being Satan, right? That's 2 movies where he whoops Satan's ass. What's the other movie where he whoops Satan's ass? Bam, The Devil's Advocate. This dude is whooping Satan's ass in like every other movie. Now, look at this, folks. Kaboom. What is this from? This is from Constantine. And what happens at the end of Constantine? He is floating up into heaven, and standing behind him is a real salty Satan. Keanu Reeves didn't whoop Satan's ass. He whooped the shit out of a whole bunch of demons. He fucked up a whole bunch of demons in this movie. He didn't whip Satan's ass. He did something even worse. He punked him. He embarrassed him. And he's floating away into heaven, and Satan's standing behind him all salty. And what does Keanu do? He flips him the bird. Bam, that's another time he defeats Satan. How many times is this dude going to be defeating Satan in every other movie? This guy's like a Satan defeating machine. Damn. I mean, it's so obvious when you think about it, when you put the pieces together. The Devil's Advocate? I mean, Al Pacino's trying to tempt his ass, but Keanu stands firm at the end. It's like every movie of Keanu's career is basically just Hollywood screaming in our face, being like, this motherfucker, Jesus. Let me show you another movie that is so clearly Jesus. Boom. Bill and Ted. Think real hard about Bill and Ted, folks. Think real fucking hard, okay? What is the story of Bill and Ted, if you haven't seen it? Right? They're 2 bros, 2 laid-back dudes who just enjoy life, always positive, always happy. And they're taken on a mission to save the world, right? And what is their destiny? How are they meant to save the world? They're supposed to create music that is so good, it's meant to inspire people. It's meant to bring people together. It's meant to make people want to better themselves. Society comes together. But in order to make this music happen, we must go back in time. We must get people like Genghis Khan and Joan of Arc and Abraham Lincoln, the best of the best humanity can offer, right? And you take the best of the best and the brightest. They had Socrates up in that bitch, and they're being led through the San Dimas Mall with the wisdom and the guidance of Bill and Ted. Now, what happens in the next movie? In the next movie, Bill and Ted die. They go into the afterlife. And then they go on the most bogus of journeys. Right? Do you guys remember that line in the Apostles' Creed, right? I believe in Jesus. I believe in God, maker of heaven and earth, right? Believe his son, died on the holy cross, descended into hell, right? And people say for 3 days. You know what that was, folks? That was Jesus's bogus journey. That's right. And then he was resurrected. But between that time, after Jesus died, but then he was risen again and ascended to heaven, the bogus journey. Just like Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted is like an allegory for Jesus. It's so freaking obvious. Now here's another movie that this one's a little deeper. This one's going to require a little more explanation, but here we go. I'm going to give it a try. But it's another example of Hollywood smacking us in the face, being like, this dude Jesus. Kaboom. Point Break, baby. Point fucking break. Now, this one's a little more interesting, okay, because with Point Break, it's a little different. I don't think it's more of an allegory of the life of Jesus. I think it's more of an allegory of like the origin of Jesus. But most importantly, what I think the true meaning behind Point Break is that it's Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. Now, in this case, Keanu Reeves is Jesus, but Patrick Swayze, people think Patrick Swayze is like the devil in this movie. No, Patrick Swayze is the Buddha. When I watch Point Break, I'm thinking this is like if Jesus and Buddha met up. This is what it would look like. Now, let me explain. So remember, Patrick Swayze, right? He's in the surfer gang. And what are they doing? They're robbing banks. But in the meantime, they're like partying, they're enjoying life, they're detached from the world, right? And I'm not saying that Buddha would be a bank robber, but think about what the bank robbers themselves. Dude, Scott's life, I just went into this whole thing about how Dracula died defeated by Keanu Reeves because he tried to cockblock Keanu Reeves, trying to get up on Winona Ryder. And you don't cockblock Keanu Reeves. You just don't do that. No. No one tries to get up on Keanu's woman. You just don't. That's one of the laws of the universe. You do not cockblock Keanu Reeves. No. I saw that movie once, and I saw Dracula steal Keanu's girl like that, and I'm like, nope. I can never watch this movie again. That movie upset me. That was sacrilegious. But hey, it's Canada Dummy. What's up, dude? Okay, so the reason why in Point Break, why Keanu Reeves is the Jesus figure in this is because you got to pay attention in the beginning of the movie. He's an FBI agent, and the guy who is like his mentor, who sends him out on the mission, his name is Angel Papa. Angel Papa, really? I think it's pretty obvious who that's meant to be, right? Keanu's character's named Johnny Utah, former football player turned into a FBI agent, seen as like the perfect guy, right? He's seen as the perfect dude. And he's meant to stop these bank robbers. And the bank robbers, what do? They dress up in presidential masks, right? The former presidents. So they represent, as bank robbers, the leaders of men, right? Mankind, the greatest of men, the former presidents, the people who lead this world. And they're robbing these people, innocent ass people at the bank. But what's real interesting is what do? they only rob the cashiers. They never go after the vault because it's the principle of Buddhism, right? It's the detachment from desire. And yeah, when you see these interactions between Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, Patrick Swayze is sharing his philosophy. And if you look at his philosophy, okay, and the most obvious thing is Patrick Swayze's character was named Bodhi. Really? Like Bodhidharma, Bodhisattva, Siddhartha Gautama attained nirvana meditating under the Bodhi tree. Really? His name is Bodhi? That's pretty obvious. And then Keanu's boss is named Angel Papa. I mean, come on. It's clearly the story of if Jesus had to, meet Buddha. That's what it is. And also, what's the other theme in the movie? Surfing. What is Keanu doing this whole time? He's learning to walk on water. And what is their battle at the end? The final confrontation, right? They jump out of the plane. Keanu jumps out. No parachute. Oh my God. And they're battling these two godlike figures descending from the sky, right? And at the very end, when Patrick Swayze as Bodhi is just like, Johnny Utah, you just got to let me go into the surf that last wave. And he knows he's going to die, but he lets his brother go anyway so that Bodhi can go back off into the abyss. And all is right in the universe, and balance has been achieved. Point Break. It's one of the deepest movies there is when you really think about it. All right. I think that was all the pictures. I had a few more, but I forgot to upload them. Oh, well. So the other thing that got me thinking about Keanu Reeves is not just the movies, but it's the stories you hear about him, right? Because every time like you see those stories on social media where it's like people like on Reddit telling different celebrity encounter stories, like people who are like waiters and waitresses at restaurants, and they're like, oh, this celebrity was a dick. Oh, this celebrity was a good tipper. This celebrity was awkward and real quiet, right? You always see those stories. And you hear about, and I have friends who've known like a lot of celebrities. Like I knew this one dude in Korea who owned his own security company. He was this big Japanese dude. His name was Ken. Cool guy. Spoke perfect English. He actually grew up in the States, so he actually was like a full-on native speaker. He sounded like me. And yeah, we became real tight. And when he was in Japan, he ran this big security company where they would do like, bodyguard work. But one of their biggest clientele were like Hollywood celebrities who would visit Japan for like promotional work. Because every celebrity would have to, when there's a major movie coming out, they would have to do like promotional work in Japan because it's one of the biggest markets. So he and his security staff, they would bodyguard just about all the major celebrities in Hollywood. So he told me about like who were dicks and who were, and he wasn't just like, he would have to be by their side like 24/7 for like 3 days straight. So he got to see a lot of like how they were. He told me of the celebrities. The one he said was the biggest dick was Sylvester Stallone. Because he said that most of the celebrities felt relieved being in Japan because the majority of the people walking down the street wouldn't recognize them. Maybe a couple, but it's not like in America where if you walk down the street, everyone recognizes you, right? So all the celebrities, they would always say that their favorite thing about Japan is walking around in Tokyo, they could just walk down the street and no one would look at them because a lot of people they don't know who they are. They're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I heard Brad Pitt would say that a lot, actually. Like he loved going to Japan just because he loved just like walking down the street. That's it. Sorry, I'm just pouring myself another drink and I don't want to mute because I'm too lazy. So So my buddy Ken tells me that yeah, Sylvester Stallone was the one guy he thought was the biggest dick, not because he was particularly rude or anything, but he was the only celebrity out of all of them who was like angry or like salty at the fact that more people didn't recognize him. So he was like, "Man, this guy's a turd." He said that Brad Pitt and George Clooney, they were like in the middle. They weren't particularly assholes or dicks, but they weren't particularly like nice or friendly or warm either. They were just kind of like in the middle. They just kept to themselves, and they. He said that the two coolest celebrities out of all of them, he said his two favorite people were Jim Carrey. He said was like the nicest guy. Um, He never did Keanu, by the way, so I never got to ask him about that. But the other answer actually surprised me. He said the number one nicest guy he's ever bodyguarded for from Hollywood, he said by far was Nicolas Cage. He was like, that dude was such a kind man. Like my buddy Ken told me that Nicolas Cage would actually go out of his way to get to know each of the security guards, like all the bodyguards. Like he went out of his way to not only pay for all their shit and pay for all their meals, but he really treated them like he wanted to know about them and like them as people. And he really let them in. And when he said on the last day, Nicolas Cage gave each of those guys an envelope, and inside the envelope was like $1,000 of cash. And he was like, really holding their hands and thanking them and just being like, thank you, thank you for staying with me and looking out for me. This is from me to you. And he was like, dude, Nicolas Cage was by far one of the nicest human beings he had ever met. So ever since I heard that story, I was like, yo, I'm a Nicolas Cage fan for life now. I mean, if a guy I know I can vouches for that guy, then I'm like, okay, I'm sold. But Keanu Reeves is another one of those dudes where no matter what kind of random people you hear stories from, 100% of the stories are all Keanu Reeves is like the nicest, humblest, down to earth guy there is, who doesn't get involved in none of this Hollywood bullshit. He keeps himself away. Still popular, so he's still, in the zeitgeist, but he doesn't get involved in none of that bullshit. And that's what like everybody says about him. Now, actually, you know who was apparently had the most was particularly notorious for having bad BO and never showering was Brad Pitt. So at least I, read that on the internet somewhere. So, you never know. But tying this all back to the paranormal, right? I consider myself a friend and a fan of Tony Merkel's The Confessionals. I hope that you guys listen to that too. If you haven't, it's one of my favorite, not even one of my favorite. It is, in my objective opinion, the best paranormal podcast there is, in my opinion. And I am very proud to consider Tony a friend. We have gone on a couple investigations together. But he, on his podcast, if you go on to Confessionals, now this is a members only episode, but it was episode 481, where they were talking about all the evil shit in Hollywood. It's like a 3-hour long conversation about the paranormal, and it's about Hollywood insiders. And he interviews two people. One of the guys, they don't know each other, but they're all together in the same studio. And one of the guys is like a former screenwriter and a Hollywood producer who was very in on Hollywood. And the other one was this lady who was also very in, but from a different perspective, because she was like the head of all the crew. So she was always on the crew side, but because she was so busy on the crew side, she worked on so many movies very closely with so many different actors and got really deeply embedded in the industry and knew all the workings and happenings and all the behind the scenes stuff. And he interviewed both of them because they both left Hollywood for the same reasons. And they both became very devout Christians afterwards. So in the interview with Tony, 481, they're talking about how one of their main reasons for abandoning Hollywood was because of all the satanic stuff that they encountered, like actual satanic parties that people were being invited to. There were all these satanic connections. They believed that there were certain people that were actually like possessed, and they witnessed rituals. They knew all these celebrities who were involved in some of these like events, one would say, and they were just so freaked out about it, and they had their own scary paranormal experiences because of it, they believe. And they both got the fuck out and just started whole new lives and became Christians. And they went on Tony's show to interview about their experiences and the kind of crazy satanic shit that they saw. But at one point, this guy's talking about all the, his career as a former producer and screenwriter. And he brings up all the different celebrities that he knew were involved in all that weird shit, going out to all those fucked up parties, like those eyes wide shut parties and like these weird orgies and fucked up shit. And he said that of all the celebrities that he knew and he worked with, the only one that he viewed as incorruptible was Keanu Reeves. He was like, that guy is literally that guy. Like all the stories you hear about him, about being that nice of a human being, he is that guy. This is what this guy's talking about. He had to like stop this whole, it wasn't even on topic, but he had to make sure it was a point that it was known that he was like, in my opinion, of all the celebrities that I've met and worked with, Keanu Reeves is really like an incorruptible. And the other lady who was working crew, she was like, oh my God, you think the same thing? And she was like, and then she goes into her stories about the time she worked with Keanu. And she worked with him on a whole bunch of different movies. And she was like, oh my God, I agree wholeheartedly. Keanu, that guy's, he's like pure. He is like so good and pure and decent, and he doesn't get involved in none of it. He doesn't even get tempted by any of it. They did go into this one fucked up story where Keanu unwittingly went into one of these parties, or went to a party thrown by this guy that was involved in this shit. And apparently he opened the freezer and the refrigerator just to get something to drink, and then he sees the body of a don't even want to say the story. Let's just say he finds an aborted something in the freezer, and then he closes the freezer, walks out the party, moves away from Hollywood. He's like, I want nothing to do with this shit. And they're like, yeah, Keanu Reeves really is that fucking guy. He really is that dude. And they were both in agreement. This guy is incorruptible. And when it's coming from them, and I'm like, holy shit, maybe there's something going on here with Keanu for reals. Now, I'm going to leave you at this. Now, this is all conjecture. This is all just me talking shit, right? Whatever. There's no proof. Or is there? Indeed. I want to bring your attention to this photo, this little gem I found. Now, this was taken a few years back where Keanu Reeves is just chilling at a restaurant. Little boy randomly comes up to him, asking for his autograph. Keanu is like, hey, man, yeah, cool. Yeah, sure, whatever. He's being his all nice self. But pay attention to what's on the table. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a close-up. What do you see, folks? What do you see? I see a bottle of water. And I also see a glass of wine. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Really makes you wonder. Yeah. When I saw that, I was thinking, you know what? He might already be back, folks. And he's been hiding in the biggest cesspit of them all. But he's still keeping his cool. Because he's Jesus. And he cool like that. Now, before I let you go, I gotta leave you with this one thought, okay? So there were a couple episodes ago, I did that one episode, like, what if Jesus had to fight Dogman? Who would win in a fight? And I brought up the cleansing of the temple and how the Bible may have suggested that Jesus mayhaps knew Kung Fu. Who knows? So what if Kung Fu Jesus fought Dogman? Be an interesting fight. But then I started thinking, now with this Keanu Reeves connection, what if Jesus as Keanu as John Wick had to fight Dogman? In that situation, I think Dogman's kind of fucked. I'll leave you at that, folks. I'll leave you at that.